The rain on Hyperion 7 wasn't water. It fell in slow gel-like droplets, each one a tiny prism that refracted the neon chaos of the Undercity into 1,000 bleeding smears of light. Leo Thorne didn't notice the beauty. Hunched in the lee of a malfunctioning waste compactor, its vents exhaling the sour breath of 1,000 worlds, he only felt the cold seeping through the patched thermal layer on his shoulder. He was counting seconds, heart hammering against his ribs, a stolen data chip burning a hole in his palm like a guilty secret. Then a small shadow detached itself from a deeper darkness. At first he thought it was a stray synth hound, all knobby joints and large luminous eyes, but it moved with a terrible silent purpose directly toward him. Leo froze, his hand instinctively going to the cheap pulse knife at his belt. The figure stopped a few feet away, the neon from a nearby pleasure den sign painting it in sudden garish color. It was a child, or something like one. She was small, impossibly slender, her skin a matte dusk gray. Two large obsidian black eyes, without sclera or pupil, reflected the city's fever dream. She wore a tattered shift of some iridescent fabric now dull with grime. Her most striking feature was a delicate, fractal pattern of bioluminescent lines that traced her temples and jaw, currently pulsing with a faint, anxious amber. Her voice, when it came, was not a sound heard by the ear, but a vibration felt in the teeth, a whisper implanted directly into the silence of his mind. "Sir, please, Mommy can't walk." The words were clear, perfectly translated, and laced with a desperation so raw it cut through Leo's own fear. He stared, unable to process. This was a Zillion, a species so reclusive, so enigmatic, that most humans only knew them from blurry footage and xenobiology warnings. They didn't come to the Undercity. They certainly didn't beg for help. Before he could form a thought, a new sound cut through the drone of rain and distant traffic. The heavy syncopated thud of armored boots. Regulator patrol. Hunting for him or for something else? The child's eyes widened, her bioluminescence flaring into a frantic red-orange. She didn't speak again. She just looked at him, and in that look was the entirety of a crumbling universe. The boots grew closer. Leo made a decision. He didn't think of the bounty on Zillion contraband, the danger, the madness. He thought of a little girl years and light years away, who might one day need a stranger's mercy. He opened his worn coat. "Quick," he hissed, the first human sound in the encounter. The child darted forward, a wisp of shadow and sorrow, and vanished into the space between his arm and his chest. Leo closed the coat, feeling her slight, shivering weight against him, and stepped out into the gel rain. Just as two regulators rounded the corner, their helmeted gazes sweeping the alley, he kept his head down, his pace steady, a man with nothing to hide, carrying all the secrets of the stars. Leo's world was a vertical tomb called the Undercity, the tangled, dripping root system beneath the glittering spires of Nova Atrium. Up there, in the stratospheric habitats, the air was filtered and scented, the gravity was perfectly calibrated, and life was a curated dream. Down here, humanity and its galactic refuse pooled. The air was a thick soup of ozone, fried protein paste, and alien musk. Light came in broken brands. The violent purple of a body mod parlor, the sickly green of a fungus bar, the relentless white glare of security, beams slicing through the perpetual twilight. His home was a single pressurized module, Unit 47B, stacked like a coffin among hundreds in the tangled superstructure of Hab Cluster Kappa. It hummed with the subsonic groan of failing life support. The air inside was stale but familiar, carrying the ghost scents of old coffee, solder, and the powdery, innocent smell of child soap. A smell that lingered like a haunting. 5 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. That's how long it had been since the comms officer's face had appeared on his shoddy terminal, her expression professionally somber. The SS Valkyrie, an interstellar hauler, had encountered a gravitic anomaly near the Kythera Rift. No distress call. No debris field. Just silence. His wife, Alara, had been the ship's botanist, tending the hydroponic gardens that fed the crew. She'd taken their daughter, Maya, for what was supposed to be a safe 6-month educational cruise. "See the nebulae, baby," Alara had said, her holographic image flickering in his memory. "It'll be an adventure." The anomaly took the adventure. It took them. Leo's grief was a quiet, constant engine. It powered him through his work as a freelance tech scavenger, picking the bones of derelict ships and forgotten tech in the sprawling junkyards that bordered the Undercity. It was dangerous, illegal more often than not, but it paid enough to keep the repo bots from his door and to maintain the one thing he had left of Maya, her room. He pushed open the door to it now after sealing the main hatch of his module. It was a sanctuary frozen in time. A bed shaped like a crescent moon, a month's wages painstakingly assembled, faded posters of galactic wildlife, a small dormant hollow projector that used to cast constellations on the ceiling. He kept it clean, charged and waiting. A part of him, the part that refused to accept the cold equations of deep space loss, believed if he kept her space ready, she might find her way home. It was a parent's superstition, the only religion he had left. He gently unwrapped the alien child from his coat. She stood in the center of his living space, seeming even smaller. Her luminous lines dimmed to a pale, steady blue. She surveyed the cramped quarters with those vast, black eyes taking in the salvaged tech components, the worn furniture, the small kitchen nook. There was no fear in her gaze, only a profound, weary assessment. "You're alone?" Her voice resonated in his mind. It wasn't a question. "Mostly," Leo said aloud, his own voice rough from disuse. He moved to the sanitizer unit, wetting a clean cloth. "You said your mother. She's hurt? Where?" The child, he needed to call her something, pointed a slender, gray finger toward the lower sectors, the direction of the Rust Belt, the most lawless industrial zone, the place of falling stars, the metal cave that smells of decay, a derelict ship, of course. Many zillion refugees, those few who left their hidden colonies, ended up in such places, hiding from regulators, corporates, and bounty hunters who prize their unique biosignatures for everything from illegal neural tech to exotic pharmaceuticals. "Is she like you?" he asked, kneeling to wipe the grime from her face. She allowed it, her head tilting. Her skin was cool and smooth like polished stone. "She is more, and less now." The mental voice wavered. The bad light touched her. "It is eating her from inside." The bad light, radiation, a weapon? Leo's scavenger mind raced. "What's your name?" he asked softly. A complex series of images and sensations flickered in his mind. The scent of ozone after a rain, the sound of a crystal chime, the feeling of sunlight on a deep, still pool. It was beautiful and untranslatable. "I'll call you Rain," he said, "for the feeling of it." And the sound, her luminescent lines warmed to a gentle gold for a fleeting second. "Rain, I get is a good vibration." He fed her a nutrient bar, which she examined with intense curiosity before consuming in small, precise bites. He watched her, the professional detachment he used to survive melting away. This was a child, alone, scared, and her mother was dying in a wreck. His own loss was a fresh wound throbbing in sympathy. He thought of Maya, lost in the vast, uncaring dark. If someone had found her, offered her shelter. He couldn't leave Rain's mother to die. "Take me to her," he said, already gathering his kit. A med scanner, anti-rad chelators, a cutting torch, his pulse knife. "We have to move before the main patrol cycles." Rain stood, her small hand finding his. The touch was cool, and another soft wave of emotion brushed his consciousness. Gratitude, tinged with a deep, ancient sorrow. As they slipped back into the gel rain night, Leo felt the weight of his own solitude lift, replaced by a different, more terrifying gravity. The pull of responsibility for a life not his own, in a world designed to crush such fragile connections. The journey to the Rust Belt was a descent into the planet's mechanical bowels. They navigated through leaking coolant tunnels, across gantries that groaned under their weight, past the hollow-eyed sentinels of decommissioned refinery rigs. Rain was a phantom guide, leading him with uncanny certainty through the labyrinth. She would pause, her head cocked as if listening to a frequency only she could hear, then tug him down a new, even darker path. "The metal voices are loud here," she shared once, as they passed a shuddering plasma conduit. "They scream of heat and pressure. Your people do not hear them." "No," Leo whispered back, helping her over a jagged pipe. "We're mostly deaf to the world we built." Finally, they reached the place of falling stars. It was a graveyard. The carcasses of ships, from sleek corporate shuttles to hulking bulk freighters, lay piled in a massive fog-shrouded canyon. Scavenger teams, identifiable by their jury-rigged exosuits and heavy cutters, moved like carrion beetles in the distance, their torches casting frantic shadows. Rain led him to the far edge, to a vessel half buried in the scree. It was a Zillion ship, or had been. Its design was organic, flowing, like a smoothed river stone, but it was brutally ruptured. A massive charred puncture marred its side, the edges melted and blackened. The bad light had a source, the distinctive, coruscating burn pattern of a military-grade plasma lance. This wasn't an accident. This ship had been shot down. Rain's luminescence flickered fearfully as they approached a hidden hatch, camouflaged to look like part of the hull. She placed her palm on it and a section irised open silently. The air inside was cold, recycled to the point of sterility, but beneath it was a coppery, sickly sweet smell Leo recognized, infection, and the ozone tinge of leaking energy cells. The interior was a masterpiece of alien biotechnology. Walls glowed with a soft internal light, pulsing gently. Structures seemed grown rather than built. But it was also a tomb. In the main chamber, lying on a form-fitting pallet that had morphed to cradle her, was Rain's mother. Leo's breath caught. She was taller than Rain, her form more elegant, her fractal patterns more intricate, swirling over her skin in dazzling crystalline complexity. But they were dim, fragmented like a shattered galaxy, and the bad light was visible, a sickly, pulsating green radiation emanating from a wound on her side, a corruption that seemed to writhe beneath her skin, fighting against her natural blue bioluminescence. Her eyes were closed, her chest rising in shallow, labored hitches. "Moira!" Rain's thought was a choked sob. She ran to the pallet, placing her small hands on her mother's arm. At the touch, the mother's eyes fluttered open. They were the same profound black, but clouded with pain. Her gaze found Leo, and a surge of powerful, coherent thought slammed into him, far stronger than Rain's. "Human, you brought my child back. You have our gratitude, but you must leave. The hunters are drawn to the light's decay. They will come." "Hunters?" Leo asked aloud, moving forward with his med scanner. The readings were horrific. Cellular degeneration, radical isotopic contamination. The plasma blast had been laced with a radioactive tracer, a cruel tool for tracking. "Who did this to you?" "Those who seek the gift. They think it can be taken. They are wrong. It can only be given, or it becomes a poison." Her mental voice was fading, laced with static. "Ami's heater is for Rain now. But she is not ready. The connection is breaking. You must—" A wave of agony silenced her. Leo injected a broad-spectrum, anti-rad cocktail and a potent analgesic from his human kit, praying xenobiology was forgiving enough. The mother's tension eased slightly, but the green pulsing didn't cease. "I can't fix this here," Leo said, his voice tight. "The source of the radiation is embedded. I need a clean room, surgical nanites, isotopic filters. I have a place. It's not much, but it's safer than here. And you risk your world for ours." The mother's thought was one of wonder and profound sadness. "My world is already gone," Leo said, the words escaping before he could cage them. He met Rain's desperate eyes. "Let me try." It took hours. He used a grav sled from the ship's damaged stores, carefully maneuvering Moira onto it. He shrouded her in a reflective thermal blanket to dampen her biosignature and the radiation leak. The trek back was a nightmare of tension. Every distant echo of machinery, every sweep of a searchlight from above, sent his heart into his throat. Rain walked beside the sled, her hand never leaving her mother's, her luminescence a steady, worried blue. They made it to Unit 47B just as the artificial dawn cycle began, casting a feeble gray light through the grime-caked viewport. He converted Maya's room into a makeshift med bay, sealing the vents and rigging a portable containment field around the bed to suppress the radiation signature. He worked tirelessly, connecting Moira to his own scavenged equipment, monitoring her fragile life signs. Rain watched, a silent, solemn shadow. When Leo finally slumped into a chair, exhaustion weighing his bones, she approached. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached out and touched his temple. A vision, clear and powerful, flooded him. He saw Moira, whole and radiant, standing in a forest of glowing, crystalline trees under a double-star sky. She was singing, a physical vibration that made the air shimmer and the crystals hum in harmony. Rain, younger, danced between the trees, her laughter a cascade of silver chimes. The vision was saturated with a sense of profound connection, not just between them, but to the very life around them, a symphony of shared existence. This was the gift, not a thing, but a state of being, a resonant empathy with the universe's fundamental frequencies. Then the vision shattered into fire, screaming metal, and the piercing green light of the plasma lance. The song turned into a silent scream of violation. Leo gasped, pulling back. Tears streamed down his face. He had felt their loss, their beauty, their terror. It was more intimate than any spoken story. Rain's own lines were dim. You see, you hear a little. I heard enough, Leo rasped, wiping his face. He looked from the dying mother to the orphaned child, and the walls he'd built around his own heart crumbled to dust. This wasn't just about shelter anymore. It was about protecting a song from being silenced forever. He just didn't know how loud and how close the silence was coming. For 3 days, a fragile routine held. Leo scavenged for specific medical parts by day, his every move paranoid, watching for tails. He sold the stolen data chip to a fence for a pittance, buying high-grade medical nanites. At home, he worked on Moira, the nanites slowly, painstakingly collating the radioactive particles. Rain was his constant companion, learning human gestures, helping with simple tasks. She developed a fondness for the texture of synth fabric and the simple melody of an old wind-up music box that had been Maya's. Leo found himself talking to her, telling her about Alara, about Maya, about the quiet dreams he'd had for a family. She listened, her head tilted, absorbing his grief and offering quiet waves of empathy in return. A bond was forming, delicate as a spider's silk but strong as Durasteel. On the 4th evening, as Leo was calibrating the containment field, his terminal chimed with an urgent encrypted priority alert. It was a channel he'd paid a fortune to monitor, reserved for Deep Space Salvage Guild bulletins. His blood ran cold. The header read, Kythera Rift Anomaly, New Analysis, Possible Survivors Identified. With trembling hands, he opened the file. It was a garbled, fragmentary signal, recovered by a long-range probe. A single loop of audio, buried in gravitational static. He played it. A voice strained, broken by interference, but unmistakable. Mayday. Life pod, coordinates unstable. Ilara Thorne, 1 survivor. My daughter is Ilara. The world dropped out from under him. He played it again. And again. It was her. She was alive, or had been when this was sent. And she'd said 1 survivor. Not we. 1. Maya. The hope was a supernova in his chest, so violent it was agony. He clutched the edge of the terminal, his knuckles white. They were out there. One of them. Maybe both. The coordinates were unstable, but they were there. Rescue mission. A proper corporate or military one could pinpoint it. It would cost more credits than existed in the Undercity. Then another alert pinged. This one was public, flashing on all major news feeds. A planetary announcement. Leo's eyes, still blurred with desperate tears, scanned it. Bounty notice, Planetary Consortium, for the capture and transport of a living, mature Xilian specimen. Reward, 50,000 credits. Reason, critical xenobiological research. Contact Regulator Command Private Channel Zeta. A holographic image accompanied it. It was generic, a Xilian silhouette, but the details were clear. The bounty was for Moira. The credit figure was astronomical. It was more than enough to fund a private, top-tier deep space salvage fleet for a year. It was the price of his daughter's life. The juxtaposition was a cosmic horror. The 2 most powerful forces in his universe. His love for his lost child and his burgeoning love for this found one, slammed into each other with annihilating force. His eyes drifted from the bounty notice to the open door of Maya's room, where Rain sat vigil by her mother, humming a soft, discordant version of the music box tune. The regulators. The hunters. They weren't just after Xilians for research. They'd shot down Moira's ship. They'd poisoned her with a tracking radiation to draw others or to trap her. And now they'd placed a bounty so high every scum-sucking bounty hunter in the sector would be tearing the Undercity apart. They were coming. It was only a matter of time before a random bioscan or a nosy neighbor led them to Unit 47B. He had to choose. Turn Moira in, collect the bounty, use it to mount a rescue for Alara and Maya. It was logical. It was what the old Leo, the survivor, would do. A stranger's life for his families. Or protect them, hide them, condemn his own flesh and blood to the eternal silence of the rift. For the sake of an alien and her child who he'd known for less than a week. He looked at Rain. She had turned and was watching him, her large black eyes seeing too much. She had felt the cataclysm of emotion through the walls. She stood and walked to him, placing her small, cool hand over his clenched fist on the terminal. A simple, clear thought image came, devoid of the complex sensations of before. It was just a memory of his own face, as she had first seen it in the alley. Hard, scared, but with eyes that held a remnant of softness, and overlaid on it was her feeling from that moment. Trust. Then she showed him another. Moira in her delirium this morning, her mind adrift. In that drift she had sung a fragment of a song, a zillion lullaby, and woven into its frequencies like a harmonic echo was another song. A human one, a simple tune Alara used to sing to Maya. One Leo had hummed to himself while working. Unaware, Rain was listening. In Moira's fractured psyche, the two melodies had braided together, becoming one. The Zillions didn't just hear emotions. They resonated with the fundamental patterns of consciousness. And in Leo's pain, in his love for his daughter, they had recognized a song akin to their own. The gift is not for us alone. Rain's thought was a mere whisper. It is the seeing of the song in others. You carry a beautiful song, Leo. It is why we called to you. It is why you heard. He wasn't a savior. He was a resonant frequency. Their tragedy had harmonized with his. The twist wasn't just the bounty or the message. It was the revelation of his own role. He wasn't just making a choice. He was choosing which song to amplify into the universe, one of desperate, sacrificial love for his own, or one of protective, expansive love that had been offered to him as a trust. To sell Moira would be to silence the song in himself that Rain had heard. It would make him a note in the hunter's symphony of greed. A heavy fist pounded on his main hatch. A voice amplified and brutal echoed through the metal. Regulator compliance sweep. Open by authority. Of the planetary consortium, bioscan. Indicates anomalous readings within. They were here. Leo looked at Rain, then at the terminal with its siren call of salvation for his daughter. He made his decision. With a swift, brutal motion, he pulled the primary power coupling for his module. The lights died. The terminal went black. The constant hum of life support silenced, leaving only the pounding on the door and the frantic, green-tinged glow from Moira's wound in the next room. In the sudden profound dark, he reached for Rain's hand. "We run," he whispered. Their flight was a masterpiece of desperation. Leo used a secondary maintenance hatch, leading them into the cramped, oily interstitial spaces between the habitat walls. He carried Moira on a makeshift backboard, her weight a moral anchor. Rain scampered ahead, her natural low-light vision and her connection to the metal voices of the station guiding them through ducts and crawlways, avoiding the sweeping search grids of the regulators. They emerged in a derelict hydroponics sector, a cavernous space where dead vines hung like ancient cobwebs and shattered growth lamps littered the floor. It was here, hidden beneath a collapsed filtration unit, that they finally stopped. Leo's body screamed with exhaustion, his mind a war zone between hope and terror. He administered more medication to Moira. Her condition was stabilizing infinitesimally, but the green pulse was weaker, not because she was healing, but because her energy was fading. Rain curled up beside her mother, her luminescence a dim, steady blue vigil. The fractal patterns on Moira's skin flickered occasionally, reaching for her daughters, like two weakened stars trying to form a constellation. Leo sat with his back against cold ceramic, the audio fragment from the rift playing on a loop in his mind. One survivor. Which one? The question was a knife twisting in his soul. He saw Maya's smile, heard Alara's laugh. He saw Rain's trusting eyes, felt the echo of Moira's dying song. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the dark, not sure who he was apologizing to, his lost family, or the one shivering a few feet away. A soft touch on his knee. Rain had moved over to him. In the gloom, her black eyes were bottomless pools. "You are breaking," and she sent, the thought filled with a sorrow that mirrored his own. "Your song is full of sharp edges. It cuts you." "I have to choose, Rain," he said, his voice cracking, "and every choice is wrong. The human who hurt my mother, he also had a choice. He chose to take. To make silence. You are not that frequency." She hesitated, then climbed into his lap. A gesture so childlike, so human it shattered him. She was small and cool against his chest. My mother's song, it is joining the great resonance. She is not afraid. But she is sad to leave me alone. You are sad your song may be alone. We are the same." Leo's composure broke. Silent, racking sobs shook him. He held the alien girl, this strange, wonderful child, and wept for his daughter, for his wife, for Moira, for the unbearable cruelty of a universe that forced such choices. Rain didn't cry, but her luminous lines pulsed in soft rhythm with his trembling, a visual echo of his grief, sharing the burden of it. After a long time, his tears spent, a new clarity emerged. The pain was still there, but it had been heard. Truly heard in a way no human ever could. It hadn't fixed anything, but it had transformed it from a solitary scream into a shared lament. He understood now what the gift was. It wasn't power. It was the annihilation of loneliness. It was the profound understanding that no consciousness, in its joy or its suffering, ever truly vibrated alone. From her palate, Moira stirred. Her eyes opened, clearer than they had been in days. Her mental voice, when it came, was thin but focused, directed at Leo. The child of your blood, the one lost in the between, did a series of complex, multi-dimensional coordinates. Unlike any human nav data unfolded in Leo's mind, it was a sense of location based on gravitational melodies, quantum foam harmonics. He couldn't understand it, but he knew it. He felt the truth of it in his bones. This is the song of her place. It is not a stable one. It drifts, but it is her now. The other song, the one you call Alara, it is not there. It has joined a different resonance. Alara was gone, truly gone. The finality of it, delivered with such gentle certainty, was a merciful blow. It hurt, but it was a clean hurt, not the jagged tear of hope. And Maya's song was still singing somewhere in the strange physics of the rift. You have a vessel. Moira continued, her light fading slightly, in the place of falling stars. The one that brought us. Its heart is wounded, but it can fly. It knows the songs of the deep. It can follow this one. She meant the coordinates. The Zillion ship could find Maya where human ships could not. But you need a pilot. And it's shot to hell, Leo said, hope and despair wrestling again. The ship hears the pilot's song. It will fly for you. For both of you. Her gaze encompassed. Leo and Rain. The gift must pass. It is time. Rain is not ready to hold it all. You are not born to it. But together, you can be the bridge. You can carry the echo until she is strong. Moira reached out a trembling hand. Rain, weeping silent, light-based tears that fell like drifting sapphire sparks, took it. Leo, compelled by a force deeper than instinct, placed his hand over theirs. A final transcendent surge of consciousness flowed from Moira. It wasn't a memory or a vision. It was a transfer, a vast, gentle knowing, not the full depth of the Zillion gift, but its essential framework, its core frequency of connection. He felt it settle into him, not as an alien invasion, but as a tuning fork being struck, aligning a part of him that had always been dormant. He felt Rain's consciousness, bright and fearful, anchored through him. He felt the distant, faint, but persistent melody of Maya's life, a tiny brave hum in the cosmic static. Moira's light dimmed. The violent green pulse flickered and died out, its poison finally spent. Her own natural bioluminescence flared once, a breathtaking supernova of blues and violets and golds that painted the derelict chamber in ethereal light, and then faded gently to a soft, steady white, like a star seen through morning mist. Oh, her final thought was a breath of wind, a closing chord. Sing for her, sing for each other. And then she was gone. Her body remained beautiful and still, but the magnificent symphony of her consciousness had joined the great resonance. Rain let out a soundless cry, her own light dimming almost to extinction. Leo held her tight, the new, strange awareness inside him feeling the shape of her devastation. He didn't have words. Instead, he hummed. The simple, human lullaby Alara used to sing, the one that had woven itself into Moira's final dreams. Slowly, tremulously, Rain's luminescence returned, a pale blue harmonizing with the melody. Together in the dark, they mourned and prepared. The choice was made. They were no longer a human and an alien. They were a father and a daughter, bound by loss, by trust, and by a song they now had to sing across the stars. The Rust Belt was a hunting ground. News of the bounty had spread, and the regulators were out in force, supported by sleek, private gunships bearing consortium logos. The hunters had unveiled themselves. Leo and Rain moved like ghosts, using service tunnels Leo had mapped in his scavenging days. The new, faint awareness inside him, the echo of the gift, was both a blessing and a curse. He could sense the aggressive, discordant noise of searching patrols, a psychic pressure that warned him of danger. Moments before, it crested a ridge or rounded a corner, but it was overwhelming. A cacophony of fear and greed that pounded against his untrained mind. They reached the Zillion ship. The entrance was still hidden, but as they approached, a gunship descended on silent thrusters blocking their path. Its ramp lowered and 6 armored regulators emerged, led by a man in a sharp, non-standard command suit, Dr. Eris Thorne. The shock was physical. Thorne? Leo stared at the man's face, seeing echoes of his own father, a man he'd thought dead for 20 years. Eris had been a xenobiologist for the consortium, obsessed with Zillion meta-neural capabilities. He'd disappeared on an expedition, declared lost. Now here he was, not lost but transformed into the head of the hunters. Leonidas, Eris said, his voice smooth, amplified by his suit's vocoder. He didn't smile. The biotracers led us here, of course, but the family resemblance in the fugitive patterns was a delightful confirmation. You always did have a bleeding heart for strays. You shot them down, Leo snarled, pushing Rain behind him. Your own son? My family. The anomaly was a regrettable necessity in my work, Eris replied coldly. As for your new family, his gaze fell on Rain, a look of avaricious fascination. The child is a treasure, but the mature specimen signal has terminated. You have it, or had it. Hand over the body and the child, and I will personally see that you receive a finder's fee, enough to fund a nice little search for your own offspring. A family reunion of sorts. He knew. He knew about the signal from the rift. He'd used it as bait, another tool in his trap. The full, horrifying scope of his father's betrayal unfolded. He'd traded his human family for the pursuit of an alien one. You don't get them, Leo said, his voice low and final. Then you die with them. Eris shrugged, nodding to his squad. The regulators raised their rifles. Leo had one advantage: he knew this junkyard. And he had a connection to the ship. As the soldiers advanced, he grabbed Rain and sprinted not away, but as toward a towering pile of unstable wreckage. He poured his will, his need, his newfound resonant awareness, toward the Zillion ship. Help us! The ship responded, not with engines or weapons, but with a single focused harmonic pulse. It was a vibration tuned to the specific, resonant frequency of the damaged plasma conduits in the wreckage pile. The pulse struck. The pile shuddered. With a deafening groan, it collapsed, a tidal wave of metal and ceramic crashing between Leo and the regulators, cutting off their advance and sending the gunship veering away to avoid the debris. Leo and Rain scrambled through the newly opened hatch of the ship. The interior, once softly lit, now pulsed with an urgent crimson light. The ship was awake, and it was wounded and angry. Leo slid into the pilot's cradle, not a chair, but a supportive gel-like matrix that embraced him. Visions, instincts, flight paths flooded his mind, not as data but as intent. He didn't need to know how to fly. He needed to want to go, and the ship would translate that desire into motion. Strap in, he yelled to Rain, who wedged herself into a supportive niche, her light flaring with fear and determination. Outside, his father's gunship recovered, its forward cannons powering up with a high-pitched whine. Eris's face appeared on a crackling, invasive feed on the organic view screen. You can't win, Leonidas. That ship is crippled. Stand down! Leo ignored him. He thought of Maya. He focused on the coordinates Moira had given him, the strange, beautiful song of her location. He poured that focus, that desperate love, into the ship. The Zillion vessel thrummed. With a sound like a crystal galaxy being born, it lifted from the planet's surface. It was not a fast launch, but an elegant, terrifying uncoiling from gravity's grasp. Warning glyphs flared in Leo's mind. Hull integrity failing. Propulsion at 32%, weapon systems offline. The consortium gunship fired. Plasma bolts streaked toward them. Leo didn't steer. He felt the attack coming through the ship's senses, and he willed them to evade. The ship rolled, a fluid, impossible motion that made the bolts sear past. Another volley came. One grazed the hull and the ship screamed, a physical, auditory vibration of pain that shook Leo to his core. A crack splintered across the canopy. They were out of time. They couldn't win a dogfight. Leo made a decision. He pushed the desire not just to go, but to go now. With a terrifying, singular focus, he tapped into the ship's damaged core, the source of its heart. He felt Rain through their bond, amplify his will. adding her own pure frequency to the command. The ship gathered itself. For a second, it seemed to fold the light around it. Then it didn't fly away, it rejected space. It performed a short, desperate jump, not into the calculated lane of a jump drive, but into the chaotic, unpredictable layer of subspace just beneath reality. A trick only a Xelian vessel, singing in harmony with its pilots, could attempt. The last thing Leo saw was his father's gunship, shrinking away in the cold, glittering sprawl of Hyperion 7. The last thing he felt was the ship's agony as it tore a wound in the universe, and the tiny, brave harmony of Maya's song, growing clearer as they plunged into the screaming, colorful chaos between worlds. The whisper of Moira. The name had come to Leo as they jumped, and rain had chimed her agreement, drifted in the silent deep, far from any charted lane. The subspace jump had saved them, but it had shattered the ship's already wounded heart. Systems were failing. Life support was on minimal, the air growing cold. The organic hull was slowly sealing its wounds, but it would take time they might not have. Leo sat in the pilot's cradle, the gel matrix now cool and firm. The resonant awareness was a constant low hum in the back of his mind. He could feel Rain's exhaustion, a dull silver ache. He could feel the ship's pain, a deep mournful threnody, and he could feel it, faint but unmistakable, clearer than it had ever been, a tiny, bright and stubborn melody. Maya's song. It was ahead in the swirling, non-Euclidean space near the Kythera rift. They were close, agonizingly close. Rain approached, holding 2 nutrient pastes. She handed one to him and sat at his feet, leaning against the cradle. Her luminescence was a soft, steady teal, the color of deep, calm water. The metal voices are quiet here, she sent. But the other songs, they are loud. The big, slow songs of stars, the fast, sharp songs of particles. And her song. Yes, Leo said, his voice rough. He ate the paste, his eyes fixed on the view. They weren't in normal space. Outside the canopy, reality was a painter's palette left in the rain. Streamers of impossible color, fragments of distant nebulae, darkness that seemed alive. It was terrifying and beautiful. We'll find her. The ship just needs to rest, so do we. My mother's song is here too, Rain said, her mental voice soft. Not in the ship. In the resonance. She is part of the big song now. She is happy we are together. Leo reached down and she took his hand. The touch was no longer just contact. It was a confluence. He felt her steady trust, her grief metabolizing into a gentle strength. She felt his determined hope, his paternal love now extending unconditionally to her. They were 2 lost notes that had found a chord. He had set out to save a child and found a daughter. He had set out to salvage his past and was now navigating toward a future he could never have imagined. He'd lost a wife, gained a father-turned-monster, and inherited the legacy of an alien mother. The pain of it all was still there, a permanent bass note in his soul. But layered over it now were other notes. Responsibility, a strange and wonderful connection, and a melody of hope pure and clear. The ship's systems pinged a weak but positive update. Hull integrity was improving. Minimal thrust was available. They could move slowly toward the source of the distant, familiar song. Leo looked at Rain, then out at the cosmic symphony swirling around their broken, beautiful ship. Ready to go bring your sister home, he asked. Rain's fractal lines bloomed into a warm, sunset gold, the color of joy, of family, of a new beginning. She nodded. Yes, Dad. The word, spoken not aloud but felt directly in the center of his being, was the most beautiful frequency he had ever known. With a thought that was also a feeling, Leo guided the whisper of Moira forward, 2 hearts beating as one, carrying their shared song into the waiting, star-dusted dark. Behind them, in the ephemeral currents of subspace, a dissonant, hunting frequency, cold, relentless, and familiar, slowly began to recalibrate, tuning itself to the faint, fading echo of their jump. The chase was not over. It had only just begun.